Welcome to the Tuesday, July 23rd Commission meeting. If you'd stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and a reminder to silence your cell phones, and meeting documents are next to Commissioner Kelly, or are they? Yeah. Oh, they are. There they are. And listening devices are available from Robert, and Robert's not here either, so here he comes. If not, then we can go right to routine business.
Item number 1 is consider a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion to amend 5B to go after 14.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to amend the agenda. Those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Now we'll go to the amended motion. Those in favor of the amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those against, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Item 2 is to approve the County Commission minutes of July 16th, 2013.
Looking for a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any corrections? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Item 3 are to approve the bills to be paid in the amount of $678,022.05.
Pay the bills?
Second.
A motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Item 4 are reports. A is the Register of Deeds official statement of fees collected during June 2013. And B is the auditor's account with the county treasurer as of June 30th, 2013. Those have been received and are on file in the auditor's office. Item 5 is personnel. A is a motion to approve the routine action.
Move routine action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve routine action. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
There are no application for abatement today. The next item are notices and requests. Item A is to authorize the county auditor to publish a request for proposals for financial advisor services.
Ken, do you have any comments?
No, other than we're holding this proposal open with the minimum amount of time that's required for publication purposes. We would open proposals on the 12th day of August 2013 at 2 p.m. and we will send out, we have a list in our office of past respondents to proposals of this type, so we'll make sure that it gets mailed and it'll be posted on our website and in the paper.
Mr. Litz, do you have any comments? Okay. Again, this is just for a financial advisor, not for an underwriter. These processes will be completely separate, and I think the RFP will be pretty clear on what our needs are, and hopefully by August 17th we'll have some good proposals from those people interested. So can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to publish the proposal for a financial advisor. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion unanimously passes.
Item B is the East Dakota Water Development District notice of meeting on Thursday, July 25th, 2013 at 9 a.m. at their office on 132B Airport Avenue, Brookings, South Dakota.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
We happen to have the director of the East Dakota Water Development District here.
Yes. Any comments that you'd like to make this morning?
Mr. Chairman, no, thank you. Just
You need to come to the mic. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Mr. Chairman, Jay Gilbertson of the East Dakota Water Development District. Now, this is just the standard monthly notice of the meeting, and obviously you're all welcome to come up to Brookings. We'll have coffee and rolls, and very short meeting, so if you've got other things to do in Brookings, go to McCrory Gardens. Come on up.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions of Jay? If not, we'll go to item 9.
Item 9 is petition for compromise of lien. John Peckus.
Thank you, Cindy. This is on DPNO 69127 in the amount of $2,761.35. The auditor's office received an application for a compromise of lien submitted actually by the law firm that is currently representing the applicant. That would be Wilka and Welter. I believe Mary Ash is actually the attorney that wrote the request and the cover letter. Apparently there was a settlement related to a slip and fall in the amount of $20,000 representing the amount received for the personal injury claim. Apparently Minnehaha County does have a lien that primarily is for poor relief and public defender and court-appointed attorney services, and that is in the amount of $2,761.35. Of course, no payments have yet been received on the account. However, given the fact that she just received $20,000, she is requesting a release of the lien upon payment of $1,000, 36% of the lien amount. There is a settlement that was attached, a settlement statement attached, that shows a list of all the different potential claimants out there and how much some of them have actually reduced their claims, given the fact that the amounts of money that were received in the settlement don't cover all the bills, including Minnehaha County. The applicant, unfortunately, has been unemployed since his injury. He is primarily a manual laborer. He is unable to meet many of the physical demands of manual labor. And of course, he lives outside of Minnehaha County now. He lives way out in Murdo. So once again, we would have to go outside the county to try to collect this. It's not as though he is living right here in Minnehaha County. However, the proceeds would help him to move forward and get some shelter and basic necessities of life. So I'll make the motion. I don't know if I'll get a second.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second for discussion.
Thank you. Before we go ahead, you can ask a question.
And I apologize. That was a poor motion on my part. The motion should be, and it was written in the letter, that it was a motion for $1,000, 36%, and to release the lien, but still hold it personally on him.
So my question is, if we choose not to, what happens?
Well, if we don't, then ultimately we do have a claim for that particular money, but the odds of us actually collecting on it, it would sit and we'd have to hopefully get something from the settlement proceeds, and we'd have to bring an action against Wilka and Welter to go against the money that was being held in their trust account to try to recover that extra money.
An additional question?
Yes, sir.
I guess that could be for Ken as well. No income tax forms with this application?
No, there weren't.
One, kind of piggybacking on what Commissioner Peck has said, if you approve the motion that is on the floor right now, we'd get $1,000. We would release our claim against those particular proceeds for that $1,000, but the remaining balance of the lien, the $1,700, would still be on the books and still be enforceable against the applicant for collection at a later date. But this is an opportunity. You might have to get the $1,000 right now.
And may I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Ken, what are the odds of us actually collecting now that he's in Murdo?
Very little.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Commissioner Kelly?
Well, here again, I don't know why we put these liens on, because when they come to us, we say, well, okay, against this particular, this may be the only revenue this guy gets. You know, as far as working, manual labor, maybe, but that doesn't tell me he can't be a dishwasher or something like that. I mean, there's, again, the attorneys get $6,700 right off the top, and we're out there holding the bag. At $2,500 of that is for public defender costs, and then of the $2,700 and some dollars. So I will not be voting for it.
Any other comments? Commissioner Barth?
You know, despite the fact that the proceeds will likely not go to food and shelter, but to extend the vacation this person's been on, I suspect that $1,000 in the hand is better than $3,300 or whatever in the bush.
Is Mary Ash here by chance? She is not? Okay. John, do you have any other comments?
Well, I was just going to echo the fact that we can bend over and pick $1,000 off the floor or we can refuse to pick it up and watch it rot.
Commissioner Heiberger?
I'm afraid if we don't take the $1,000, we won't get anything. There's enough creditors on here that I don't think we'll get anything.
Yeah, and if I might, when I reviewed this, I think Commissioner Barth, the reason there's no tax returns attached is because there was no income.
On vacation.
Well, I'm guessing he has a work-related injury.
Yeah.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor to accept the $1,000. I think we're going to need a roll call vote.
Commissioner Barth?
Aye.
Heiberger?
Yes?
Kelly?
No.
Pecos?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes. Motion passes 4-1.
The next item is opportunity for public comment.
Good morning. If there's any individuals who would like to make any comments about any items that are not on the agenda, we'd like to hear from you now. Otherwise, we'll move to item number 10. No one's coming forward, so we'll go to item 10.
It's not quite 9:15.
Not quite 9:15.
So we'll go to item 11, which is to authorize the chairman to sign the interlocal agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County pursuant to the disparate allocation determination for the U.S. Department of Justice 2013 Burn Justice Assistant Grant. Kristen Trana.
Good morning, Kristen Trana, Administrative Coordinator at the Sheriff's Office. I'm bringing to you a fairly routine action, something that we take action on most every year. It is an MOU that is required for the grant application for the Burn JAG. It divides the total amount of the grant into 65% for the City of Sioux Falls and 35% for Minnehaha County. The disparate allocation is something that was provided or recommended or, authorized by the Attorney General's office. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Commissioner Heiberger?
I just have a question, if we can have a motion and sign on this, since this is, we can, okay. I was just, because it was the grant, part of the grant application, I wanted to make sure that it was okay, we went forward with it before we did the number 10.
Okay. Commissioner Kelly?
What, is this related to next year, or is this related to number 10?
This is related to number 10.
I don't think it's appropriate to take this up until we've done number 10. That's a public hearing, correct? Number 10.
Number 10 is to review, because that does require the hearing, excuse me, the joint spending plan that was developed for this particular grant. So that's the purpose of the hearing, is to do the spending plan. This particular allocation helps to determine that split in recognition of how those grant dollars are split because of the disparate allocation agreement that's in place. So you should have no problems at least signing an agreement that says, here's the split, and then conducting the public hearing. And the reason for the public hearing is then to just simply go over the spending plan for those dollars.
Commissioner Pecos?
Yeah, so just to be clear, what we're doing is, on number 11, is we're actually approving the allocation from the state of South Dakota, and whatever that amount of money is, then we're going to take public input as to the line items or whatever the subdivision of that particular pot of money is. That's it. Okay.
Thank you, John. Any other comments?
If I talk for another 2 minutes, then we'd be okay.
I'll make a motion to approve number 11.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agreement. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
We will move on to item 12, which is to authorize the chairman to sign the modified contract between Minnehaha County and the state of South Dakota for state inmate work release housing. The original contract was approved July 16, 2013.
Michelle Boyd, Sheriff's Office. I believe Warden Gromer had put in a request to defer this a week or two, and for whatever reason, it's still on the agenda, but we have a couple of concerns about the modified contract that we want to work through before we go ahead and sign that, so we would ask that you would defer that at least for a week.
Is a week enough time, Michelle?
Let's do 2, just to make sure.
So moved for deferral for 2 weeks.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to defer item number 12 for 2 weeks. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go
Now
back
we
to
can go back.
item 10, which is a public hearing to solicit comments on the proposed joint spending plan between the City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County for the U.S. Department of Justice 2013 Earned Justice Assistance Grant. Kristen Trana.
Good morning, Kristen Trana, Administrative Coordinator at the Sheriff's Office. 2 weeks ago, we provided you the plan that we had for spending on the burn jag. I will quickly go over it, then if there's any questions. The Sheriff's Office has $23,417 that they can spend, and what the allocation has been determined by the department has been $8,417 for a robot technology solution for the SWAT team, $10,000 for a web-based training program that would be available for all of the employees of the Sheriff's Office, and then $5,000 for training. It's more advanced training for our investigations. The Sioux Falls Police Department has an allocation of $43,488, and they are going to use those funds to move the agency away from the .40 caliber firearms and move to 9mm handguns. Any questions?
Any questions for Kristen? Commissioner Barth?
Our budget is very difficult, and every year we get some of these requests. This thing comes through, and it's very helpful, but at the same time, it's not helping us that much in our budget, which is extremely stressed. As you know, whether it's in the jail or whether it's in prosecution or defense, we just don't have very much money. And I think back to some of the things that we've purchased in the past. For example, we had a sniper rifle, which the old one was reported defective, and we bought a new one. We still haven't had to shoot anyone, thank goodness, but are we just sort of churning with this money? Is there any way we can put it into our budget and help relieve some of the stress in the other areas?
We're limited of what we can purchase by the grant, and we cannot supplement our budget with the grant. And your comment about the sniper rifle, even though we haven't had to use it, we've had it out many, many times, and it's a very necessary piece of equipment that if we were not able to buy certain things like that through these grants, we would have to request funding through the budget. We try to be really careful with what we use or what we use the money for, and make sure that it's tools that our officers need for safety and security reasons to perform their duties of their job.
Well, I would just point out we had a sniper rifle before, and then we got a new one. And we have handguns, and now we're getting new ones.
Well, it's Sioux Falls Police Department.
Well, similar. Thank you.
Commissioner Peckus, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to comment that I remember when I believe our SWAT team was executing a search warrant, we were using 9mm pistols, and the unfortunate situations that this guy had a bunch of dogs. I think there were actually the nemesis breed present, the pit bull, and it went after one of the law enforcement officers with his 9mm, and he shot the dog in the head, and the dog just kind of got angrier and went and sat down. It didn't put the dog down. So I can't believe they're going from a .40 caliber Glock, which is what we actually were transitioning to. But if they want to go to a pea shooter, I suppose that's the Sioux Falls Police Department's decision. So, yeah.
I see where we have.
I was going to say, Patty is here if, I don't know if she wants to know.
Patty, if you'd like to follow those comments.
Yeah.
And welcome.
Yeah.
Patty Lyons, Sioux Falls Police Department. Actually, we did a lot of testing of the ammunition, and we found that the new 9mm ammunition is a lot more
Hard-hitting?
hard-hitting than the guns are easier to shoot, easier to train on, and we've tested it. The FBI is actually going that direction, so that's why we went.
May I ask a question? When Sheriff Milstead reported on that incident, we decided at that point to go to, I believe, a larger caliber handgun, or at least we were considering it at the time. You understand the reason why we had concerns about that, at least with the 9mm we were using at the time.
Right, and we also had 9mm, and we also switched to .40 caliber Glocks.
Okay.
We're now needing to replace our Glocks because they're 16 years old.
Right.
And we did the research, and our armor actually is the one that suggested that we go to 9mm.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Patty or Michelle?
Just a comment.
Commissioner Kelly?
I voted on the budget that went from 9s to 40s. Now I'm voting on the budget to go from 40s to 9s 16 years later, so.
Life begins at 40.
What goes around comes around.
Right, but I just want to clarify, that's not where the sheriff's office is headed. We're not
No.
purchasing handguns. That would be city, and that's their allocation to spend the way they see fit, in my opinion.
It's a cooperative agreement,
Well,
correct?
you know, that raises an
Commissioner Beckett?
You know, we try to collaborate. If the 9mm are working, could we get any sort of efficiencies with the purchase of ammunition or anything like that? Because it gets quite expensive. Do we purchase that jointly with the city to try to get better efficiencies?
No, we don't.
No? We should maybe look into that, maybe get on a consistent firearm. I don't know why we have to have different firearms. But what's that?
We don't buy it at the consumer price, though. We do get law enforcement pricing.
Okay, all right.
Any other comments or questions?
If- Oh, never mind.
Looking for a motion?
Well, it's a public hearing.
I know, but I think we need to give them an approval to move forward. And comments?
If there's anybody else that has.
Yeah, we will ask for public comment if,
I'd move approval.
Second.
is there any public comment? Evidently, there isn't any public comment because they're too scared they'll get shot.
Sorry, it's just a 40.
Just a 40, it won't hurt for long.
It's an old gun.
If I was shooting, they wouldn't have any concerns. We have a motion and a second to approve the joint spending plan between the city and the county on the grant application. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. Thank you.
We'll move on to item 13, which are closing comments and a briefing from South Dakota Department of Legislative Audits for the FY 2013 Minnehaha County Audit. Jeff Schaefer.
Good morning, Jeff.
My name is Jeff Schaefer. I'm with the Department of Legislative Audit. And our office just recently completed the fiscal 12 financial and compliance audit of Minnehaha County. At this point in time, the audit is final in its final form. And so we're ready to be published or put out to everyone. I think everyone has been supplied with a management letter that our office issued. And I guess if you have any questions at any point in time, please feel free to ask. But I would like to ask you to turn your attention to the second page. There's 5 points on here that I'd like to discuss with you today. In the middle of the second page, there's under the heading, it says deficiencies noted in internal control, which did not rise to a level of being a significant material weakness or significant deficiency, yet important enough to merit the attention of those in charge of governance. Item A there, internal accounting controls over financial reporting were inadequate, resulting in inaccurate information being presented to the users of the annual financial report. Reporting errors were noted in the following areas: inventory, equity, accounts payable, wages payable, taxes receivable, capital assets, revenues, expenditures, receipts and expenses. These errors have been corrected.
Jeff, well, first of all, does anyone have any questions? When we read that, obviously you said that it doesn't rise to the level of being a material weakness, but can you tell us a little bit of how many of those, quote, corrections you had to make?
Well, it's the process of the audit is we accumulate errors out through the entire audit. And we have a material amount that we set at the beginning of the audit based on the assets and liabilities. And any number that goes over that amount is considered material.
Right.
And we must make those adjustments. Anything under that, we have auditor's discretion, professional judgment, as if we make those for proper presentation or not. I think there was probably 8 or 10 formal adjustments that we had to make that went over that amount and were posted to your report. There were other less than significant items that were listed on a lead schedule potential adjustments that were supplied to the auditor and assistant auditors that we did not make, but we disclosed them to them also.
So those you compiled into one larger adjustment, or?
They affected several different things. It was just, it wasn't just one large one. There's several unposted adjustments, but immaterial in nature. These were the ones that would, for proper presentation or material to the financial statements.
Commissioner Kelly?
Jeff, have these been noted before? You've done an awful lot of audits here.
Right, they have. And in the past, we've always had a last letter on our master lead schedule, which was called generally an oral comment that we just mentioned to those in charge in the offices, that we just say that there were numerous errors noted in these areas. They're a little more significant this year than they have been in the past, so we just elevated it to those in charge of governments. We brought it to your attention also. It's not uncommon for an audit to have adjustments. In fact, I have not been involved in one where there hasn't been an adjustment of some nature. So.
Were there changes in procedure which brought this up to a higher level?
I don't know if it's procedural. A lot of times there are changes that are with reporting standards and stuff that come into play. We're under the same kind of changes for different things in different. The biggest thing was GASB 54 changed some of the things with equity. A lot of things that happened with equity this year. And first year, second year out, there's a lot of things that can be, do those changes causes errors and stuff. Nothing uncommon to a normal audit, though, I would say.
Commissioner Barth?
Mr. Schaefer, I appreciate all your hard work, and I know that you guys do everything you can to find anything that's happening. What actions does this commission need to take, do you feel, at this time? Is there anything that we should do that...
I guess we don't have any action, if you will, because anything that was material we corrected and stuff like that. We're just bringing this to your attention that these type of things were occurring.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So you're saying that there's nothing that we as a commission missed that we should have done at this point?
I can't say that there is, no.
Thank you.
Why don't we go ahead and continue on?
Okay. A little bit farther down the page, under immaterial violations of laws, rules, and regulations and provisions of contracts and grant agreements. Item A there, the county charged indirect administrative support costs in the amount of $27,528.24 to the County Road and Bridge Fund for costs associated with payroll, administration, personnel management, administrative, and legal. If it is the county's intention to cover these costs, the county should establish an internal service fund to account for the actual cost of a particular government function. This practice should be consistently applied for all departments. I believe that's a restate from previous years. Item B, the county authorized general government expenditures in the amount of $4,576.48 from the County Road and Bridge Fund in violation of STCL 3211-2. We recommend the county refrain from making general government expenditures from the County Road and Bridge Fund. Those are for park expenditures.
For what kind of expenditure?
It was park fund.
Okay.
The park is it should be under general fund. If you turn the page, top of the next page, item C, general government expenditures exceeded appropriations for historical museum by $48,344.32 and debt service by $16,750. We recommend that sufficient budget be appropriated to eliminate blind animal crafts.
Were those expenditures payroll, or what were they identified as?
The debt service wouldn't have been, for sure. I don't know exactly what the historical museum would cause that line item. I don't know that.
Question, Commissioner Barth?
Mr. Schaefer, so would those have been because we didn't do a supplement to those accounts soon enough?
Likely, yes.
So we paid them before we supplemented them, is that?
Right, yeah. Budget authority wasn't there. Okay.
Thank you.
The last item on there, item D, the SD and TIF agreement states that the TIF agreement is to be continued for 15 years after the completion of the project or until the public improvement project costs are recovered. The completion date and the project costs have not been certified with the county. And I think this it was in place last year with kind of an oral comment, but we're bringing this up because they still haven't done that. I'd like to have that done, please. Other than that, like I said, we had other immaterial items, and there were other smaller items that we discussed with the appropriate officials on oral comments. But that's pretty much what we have today. Are there any questions on anything?
Any questions about the management letter? The items that were orally discussed either this year or last year that are now on this management letter, can you identify which ones those are so that we know?
I've discussed every item on here with officials or the appropriate personnel as we've gone through the audit. We have another audit document called a master lead schedule. That accumulates all findings that we have, and it doesn't matter how immaterial. Those would have the oral comments on it. There are none of them on here.
Is it possible for us to get a copy of that?
It would be.
Your worksheet, so to speak?
Yeah, the audit document, yes, it would be.
Okay. I think that would be appropriate for us to have in the management of the county finances and specifically the office, so. Any other questions?
When will the audit be published and be available?
We're a little short-staffed in Pier right now, but it's out there right now being put together, so that's, it went last week, so I would imagine sometime in the next 30 days.
My guess is you're asking that question because the financial advisor needs that for some documentations of ranking and ratings. Commissioner Peckus?
A couple of years ago, Jeff, you pointed out that we needed some severe updating of our software package down in the auditor's office, and at least from your experience in the last year, has that concern been alleviated with some of the IT upgrades that we've made here at Minnehaha County?
Your software system is county-wide that you currently use, and it is not specific to the auditor's office.
Right.
And we've always, you made some upgrades to it, and this is of your choosing.
Right.
It is a system that has considerable age, and there are some efficiencies that are noted in 23 years or 25 years that you've had this system. I think it might even be longer than that. There have been significant changes that it's my personal feeling that it would be to your benefit or the county's benefit to look into those.
Right.
Integrate the software system amongst all offices. But is there anything deficient in what you currently use? No.
All right.
But that's my personal feeling, I guess.
All right.
So.
All right. Well, thank you for the candid observation.
You know, I hate to do this to you, but would you go through those journal entries in a little more detail just to tell me
the current?
Yeah, the ones that you figured were material that are on the.
Okay, I sure could, but I'm a little embarrassed. I don't have a copy of those with me. I'd be going to have to do that.
You want to use mine? Here.
But if you have a copy of them, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, here.
Well, here, I've got an extra.
I got
an extra.
Oh, okay. He's got an extra one.
Here you go.
All right. He's got a paper copy.
Everybody wants to get rid of their accounting records. I think it's important for us to be able to understand where those weaknesses are and frankly, why you had to make those entries.
And a lot of these could be presentations. They maybe look, the first one there, item 1 says due from other governments and payroll benefits payable. Actually, it looked a little awkward. It was a negative payable that was reported on the financial statements.
Okay.
Negative payable was actually receivable, and that's what it was. So we just changed that. Number 2, unassigned fund balance and interest receivable. We eliminated the, through the course of setting up receivable for your Safe Home project, fund balance was arbitrarily increased by $214,000. Then there were some payments made, and this was the balance that was remaining, and we eliminated that receivable and arbitrary increase in fund balance. Number 3.
I don't think you have to go through the smaller ones, Jeff.
Okay.
I'm more interested in the bigger items.
Which ones would you like me to look at?
Maybe the ones 4,
4.
which is the special items.
Okay. Well, the special that kind of relates to a little bit to number 2, but in special items there, you'll notice that the $216,000, that was the amount that fund balance was increased in total for the setting up that was interest receivable for the Safe Home loan. That amount showed up as a special item on Exhibit 4, and we eliminated that, and then the resulting what it really was is there's an $82.50 amount shown as a prior period adjustment on the financial statements. That in itself is immaterial, but it turned out that the adjustment really consisted of $402,000 this way, $216,000 this way, another $186 this way, and the net effect was 82. That was, so it was quite a piece of work to put together, is what it was.
And then the following journal entry is to reclassify the fund balance?
That's correct.
And then if you go down to, I need a bigger screen or better glasses.
Me too.
Item 5 on the road and bridge fund.
Oh, I believe that was with the STIP funds that came down. That's state revenue is showing up as miscellaneous revenue, and it should be state grant revenue. That's just a reclass.
Okay. And then there's a couple of larger items after that.
Okay.
Restricted for debt service.
I believe that was in, I'm trying to think of what fund that was in right offhand, but what it actually was this is one of those GASB 54 changes. It required that we show restricted amounts for debt service, but the amount we had exceeded the actual fund balance, so there was a large number there for debt service, and then a big negative number there that was a restricted amount. The net effect of the two was the right number, but we had, I think they were under the assumption that they had to show the entire amount that was required there as debt service, but actually the net effect is all that's required to be reported.
Okay. Gotcha. Any other questions for Jeff? Any comments, Bob, that you'd like to make? I think we need a motion to approve the audit.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the audit, and we'll get a certified copy, so to speak, in about a month, hopefully.
I'm thinking that somewhere that'd be reasonable.
In your guesstimation, did you spend more time here this year than you have in the past, or is it about the same?
It's hard to compare one audit to the next. We did have a little more time in the equity section than we have in the past, and that's what the fund balance and equity portions, that was due to that. Other than that, like I say, one audit, it's hard to compare one to the next with different things, refunding issues or whatever that might occur, so.
Other comments? Commissioner Kelly?
Question, do changes in, what do you call it, GASB or whatever the heck that?
GASB.
Do those changes flag or create a lot of these, or have there not been significant changes?
It can change it. Minnehaha County being as large as it is, and it affects many more things they have here. You present your report on a full-blown GAAP basis. A lot of counties, I think there's only 8 counties in the state that do that. The rest of them present their financial statements on what's called OCBOA, or other comprehensive basis of the county, which is cash. Their balance sheet would just show cash and fund balance. Whereas you show the inventories, receivables, payables, and you've chosen to do that, which I think is a good thing. I mean, I think that a county this size needs to monitor those balances in that detail. But so any type of change that comes along from GASB reflects a lot of things, and it will always hit Minnehaha County every time. So if it's OPEB liability, won't affect the little ones, but it will here. And if it's something to do with anything, will always affect Minnehaha County.
Were there a significant number of those here, or is this just was it normal as far
This
as?
is pretty much normal. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary this year. There was just kind of some rollover from last year. Last year, 54 was effective. GASB 54 for the fund balance and the equity classifications was effective last year. This is more of just kind of a continuation of that. I think we got things on the straightened out now.
Other comments, questions? My guess is, and I think I've heard various numbers about what the software purchase costs are, but we're talking 7 figures at least.
I'm sure you are. And again, it's not as our office saying that this should be, but I think that it would be prudent at some point in time that the Minnehaha County to visit that that area.
Commissioner Peckus?
Well, you know, Detroit just filed for bankruptcy protection, the city of Detroit, and, you know, one thing that we have to defend most vigorously is our auditor's office and our ability to correctly present financial information for you, primarily for our bond rating. And, you know, obviously, when there's a change in GASB, we need to follow through on that, because that is a change that was made because obviously we want to protect the public and be good stewards with public money, because if there's a deficiency, GASB is designed to try to plug those holes so that we don't have situations develop where we have our local governments get upside down in their financials. Correct?
Right. Proper reporting with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, is what we're checking on. Yes.
Thank you for your efforts in clarifying all those things. And the other thing, we do appreciate the fact that you are dedicated to make this happen quickly as possible, because I know you're almost free, but not quite.
Yeah, not quite.
Not quite.
I pay the bill, I know you ain't.
And I will get you a copy of our master lease schedule if you.
I think that would be appropriate for us. We have a motion and a second to accept the legislative audit. Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
I think we're on item 14.
Item 14, a briefing from Minnehaha County Planning and Zoning on municipal separate storm sewer system and S4 requirements in Minnehaha County. Scott Anderson and Travis Helm.
Thank you. Scott Anderson with the Planning Department, and today I'm giving you an informational item as in the form of a briefing memo. You can start it right down the PowerPoint. I'm going to be giving you some general information, and then Travis will give you a short PowerPoint presentation. In May, I was informed by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources that they would be holding a meeting to inform us of a new program that they were going to be requiring the county to participate in, called the MS4 system. Basically what that is it's going to be implemented in roughly a 2-mile buffer around the city of Sioux Falls. And this MS4 program the official name is Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, which is the acronym of MS4. And currently, this program is already being implemented or is already in operation in Pennington and Meade County. What this does, and Travis will explain a little bit more in the PowerPoint presentation, but this is a program that comes out of the EPA Clean Water Act, and it is a program that covers highly populated areas of urban area to address highway, street drainage, development drainage, catch basins, curbs, gutters, ditches, and storm drains. And the program features a multifaceted approach towards addressing this concern, the stormwater discharge. And furthermore, we have 3 impaired bodies of water identified by EPA, and they monitor the inflow into those bodies of water in this MS4 area. And those bodies of water are the Big Sioux River, Pipestone Creek, and Skunk Creek. So basically what we were told, they had a meeting in Canton on June 26th, and the following people participated. There were Lincoln County, because there's areas in Lincoln County that are now going to be included in this MS4 program, Union County, and I believe Jefferson and the town, city of Jefferson and Harrisburg. They indicated that we have until December 31st to have official action from the county commission to submit a notice of intent. And that notice of intent would basically give us 5 years to implement the program into a full-fledged MS4 program. And eventually that would require permitting of development within that identified area. And then there's also review of the construction in addition to the permitting. So there'd be site plan review of the development, then there'd be permitting of the development, and then there'd be final inspection or a follow-up inspection to make sure that it was constructed meeting the requirements outlined in the MS4 program. That's one component. There's another component that would deal with public education and outreach, and we can do that a number of ways through the internet programs, programs such as stenciling storm sewers, which we really don't have storm sewers, that you could stencil a fish that says this is flowing into the Big Sioux River or wherever. But I'd be glad to answer any questions, but before I get to my allowing you or asking if you have any questions for me, I'd like to introduce Travis Holm. He attended the sessions with me, and he prepared a short PowerPoint presentation. So why don't I'll have Travis come up. And Travis, introduce yourself to the commission and then give the presentation.
As you said, my name is Travis Holm. I'm the new intern in the planning department. I've been here since May 29th. So like Scott said, we attended a briefing on June 26th as a result of a memo we received on the 20th about being mandated to go into this program. Myself and Scott were present, and Lincoln and Union counties were present, as well as the cities of Harrisburg and Jefferson. The purpose is to address highway, street, and development runoff in areas directly adjacent to Sioux Falls. It's basically a 2-mile buffer. It improves awareness and alleviates discharges in impaired bodies of water. As he said, it was the Big Sioux River, Pipestone Creek, and Skunk Creek.
Mr. Chairman, Travis, could you hold the mic a little closer to yourself there?
Okay.
You're good there. Just point it over towards you.
Okay. Here's the coverage area. You can see in green is the city of Sioux Falls, and then the red in this light color right here is unincorporated areas that are near the city, but they are outside of their jurisdiction. And that's the area that this covers. So how do you do that? You detect and you eliminate the discharges. You develop, implement, and enforce procedures to detect and eliminate illicit discharges. Some of these procedures include construction site plan review, site inspections, and enforcement. Some of those procedures are sediment infiltration basins, vegetated filter strips, riparian zones along streams and water bodies, green infrastructure, and just general protection of natural resources. You can see infiltration basins on the upper right picture, and then just a general photo of the Big Sioux River. You just, you try to protect those areas as much as possible. This is an example of a riparian zone. Basically, somehow you put this into a code saying, requiring that trees and prairies and stuff like that near rivers don't become affected or overdeveloped, things like that. In site reviews, you go out there and you make sure that people are protecting, proper, not irrigation, but just proper erosion controls and things like that to make sure that things don't get into water bodies. Probably one of the easier aspects of this is just public awareness. You can distribute educational information with a website, and that could be one of the first steps you do. Brochures, letters, signage and stenciling. As Scott said, we don't really have many storm sewers in the county, but highway signage and public service announcements are another option. Here's just an example of signage. You can put this in a neighborhood, on a road, whatever, just reminding people that stuff that goes into their ditches will eventually wind up in, the Big Sioux River, Skunk Creek, wherever. These can go on doorways, just another example. Like I said, there aren't really any storm drains in rural areas of the county, but this is just something that they suggested. So, as Scott said, existing programs in South Dakota are Pennington and Meade counties. They coincide with particular towns already. So, there is a waiver saying that you don't have to participate in the program, but that is for areas in red that are under 1,000 people. There are some subdivisions in this area alone that are over 1,000 people, so we are ineligible. So, like I said, there are particular areas, especially right here, that are already over 1,000 people, and then you include all these other red areas here. So basically, it's mandated that we participate in the program. So with that being said, we came up with potential expenses, and as I said, I put the asterisk there, saying subject to change, you just never know. Research, initial and ongoing staffing, materials, transportation, a website, staff it, or hire a consultant for a website, signage and stenciling, designing and creating, placement, and, the transportation to get them there. Enforcement, you got to staff it, and you need transportation to get there. And then public education, staffing, venues, transportation, materials, media. And then there's always that option of litigation. You just never know. So the next steps would be to send the letter of intent by December 31st, develop a timeline to implement. You got to obviously identify which fits the county the best, and begin a plan for education and public participation.
Thank you, Travis. Commissioner Heiberger?
I just have a question. Thank you, Travis. On the coverage area, are we only responsible for the red areas, or since Del Rapids and Hartford are larger metropolitans too, are we going to be responsible for areas outside there?
It's my understanding that we'd only be responsible.
Scott, talking to Mike.
It's my understanding we'd only be responsible for the areas that are in the red and the light green, which are phase 1 and 2. And these came about through identifying growth in the 2010 census, which then pushed us up over that number, which required them to include us in the MS4 program at the state.
Commissioner Kelly?
The financial impact, now I know what we show here, but also there's going to be a cost to our citizens, I would guess, remediating these issues.
Definitely.
Any idea where we're talking? Are we talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, or?
It really depends on the size of the project. I can see, for example, something like the Lions, let's say the Lions grain elevator. Basically, they're going to have to contain pre-flow runoff off on their property to a state where they're not increasing the flows without having that filtered somehow into Skunk Creek. I mean, that would be an example, but any development is going to have to meet the criteria and the requirements set forth by DENR for flows off their property.
So this is a free country, but they're going to tell us what we have to do. Is that based? I mean, we have little choice on this thing. Is that right?
It didn't appear that we had a lot of choice, and that's why I wanted to bring this to you right away. I mean, I didn't want to drag this out and wait to the last minute to tell you that basically by December 31st, we will have to sign a notice of intent, and starting next year, we will start implementing a plan. We're going to have to submit a plan. A plan's going to have to be written, submitted to peer, to DENR. That will have to be reviewed and approved, and then once they approve our overall plan and how we're going to implement this, then we start implementing it.
One other question, one follow-up. We have no storm sewers. Is this going to force us into putting storm sewers in some of these areas, or does the ditch runoff also apply?
It's my understanding that you will not be required to implement storm sewers, but you have to treat that water that comes off that property in some way so it's protected. So you're reducing sediment flows and chemicals and whatnot. And that may be, as Travis showed you, the one slide of the catchment basin, where you have water that is flowing into the upper pitcher. Let's say for a new development or an on-site, a large commercial development may have to build these catch basins. And you see these often, if you, let's say you drive up Westport, up by the Sanford Field House and Arena, whatever, you can see some of those new industrial buildings. They have to build those catch basins right at basically the end of their parking lot, so all the water off the parking lot flows into the catch basin, it's settled out, and then flows out at a metered rate, and has been somewhat, I suppose, according to the state, purified.
Hey, Commissioner Barth, first.
Looking at the coverage area, it doesn't show, for example, Lions, and if it's only Minnehaha County, then whatever is dumped in the water, say an S line, they don't care? I mean,
They don't care. And that's correct. I mean, I didn't mean to indicate that lines would have to do that. I just indicated that a project of that size, it could have a large cost associated for a project.
so our true coverage area is what we see on this map? Is that what?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that, Commissioner Barth, is, of course, subject to change.
Of course.
We are in 2013. What will happen is in 2020, when we get our next census, our areas will be, of growth will be identified and they'll be added on there.
Commissioner Heiberger?
It looks to me like we're just kind of coming in compliance with what the city of Sioux Falls already does, but in the rural county, because the city of Sioux Falls already has these in effect in part of their ordinances. So will our ordinances somewhat mirror what they have? Because as they continue to grow into our rural area, what they're doing is taking over what we've done.
Exactly. And that's Commissioner Heiberger, a good point. We certainly can piggyback on what the city of Sioux Falls has done, and we can look at the system, the program that they have, and see if there's some way that we can join forces. But ultimately, the work, I mean, we can use their program model after their system, but the city of Sioux Falls will not go through the permitting, will not do the site plan review. I mean, it'll all fall on us, but we can work together. And I know the cities of Rapid City and Pennington County, they have sort of a program that they work together, and we've contacted representatives out there to sort of see how that worked, how it works, how they went through it, how they got it set up.
Commissioner Heiberger?
One more question. So with this project, we will do a letter of intent by the end of the year, and then the plan doesn't have to be written up until what point? I mean, March, April, May? I mean, you don't have to have the plan written up when you do the submitting. So the plan will be in 2014, we'll start working on the plan.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's correct. Basically, we have till December 31st to indicate, to sign that notice of intent, and then we have 5 years to implement the program on a staggered, on a scheduled basis. They, of course, want you to start out with getting a plan written and approved, sending that off, and it's gonna have to be detailed. It's gonna have to be very explicit, meeting the requirements set forth by the DENR and the EPA to make sure that we meet all the requirements they're gonna have to do. And this is all brand new to me as well. So we're gonna have to research this, make sure that we fully understand it, so we are not out of compliance in some fashion, and then start the work.
Commissioner Kelly?
We talk Minnehaha County, but these red areas, I don't think Pipestone Creek flows anywhere near any of these, does it? I'm not sure, but Hartford, Humboldt, those areas are not affected by this thing at all? Lyon?
Not at this point.
Okay. So really, we're just looking at the red areas to develop.
Red and light green.
Light green.
So like Split Rock Heights out by, that's included in.
Commissioner Peckus?
I was just going to comment that the red and the light green areas are within a stone's throw of the city of Sioux Falls. I wouldn't spend a lot of resources on trying to build a better mousetrap. I think we should just call the city of Sioux Falls, see what they're doing, and work with them collaboratively to try to follow through with what they're doing. I mean, good heavens, look at the areas.
Commissioner Barth?
Just would say that we do have a unique resource today with Jay Gilbertson. I wonder if he might comment on this.
Jay, would you like to make a comment?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, Jay Gilbertson, East Dakota Water Development District. Dealing with stormwater has been a difficulty for the state for a number of years. The city of Sioux Falls, by virtue of being the biggest community in the state, has had to deal with permit issues for a very long time. There's a second tier of communities, over about 10,000, that have sort of backed into it, which is why Meade County and Sturgis have to get involved. Communities below, I think, again, 10 is the number, don't automatically have to deal with stormwater issues. But as Hartford and other communities grow, if they are so lucky as to exceed those numbers, then they'll have to come to deal with these programs. But it's been noted, there are plenty of examples around the state of how this has been done, I think, quite effectively. You have 180 days to just say, okay, we're going to consider it, and then 5 years. This is South Dakota. There's somebody from DNR is going to be up here next week with a gun to your head, forcing you to do pretty much anything at all. And an awful lot of it is simple public education, letting people know what's going on. We've done quite a bit of work with the city of Brookings to address some of those public outreach needs. And as I indicated to Commissioner Barth yesterday, would be more than happy to work with Scott and the staff and the commission on, in any way possible we can, to, again, find things that have been done elsewhere, bring them down here. We've got a couple of folks in-house right now that are working on some stormwater identification things back in Brookings that I suspect would work very nicely. So we'll be happy to work with you at any capacity that you see fit. So.
Thank you, Jay. We certainly would appreciate the help, because I think that, as Commissioner Peckus and others have said, that 95% of what we see is the city of Sioux Falls. They've already got the mousetrap built, and we've got examples in Pennington County, Brookings, and other places where I don't know that we need to spend a huge amount of resources to make this thing a new project, if you will. And if we have 5 years for implementation, they may change their mind 3 times. So this is another great example of unfunded federal mandate, and gets a little frustrating, to say the least. Any other comments? I've already talked to Ken about this, because when I saw it the first time, that was my first reaction, was that it is an unfunded mandate, and I was told that there's exceptions, and guess what? We're part of that process.
It's amazing on the limitation on the state mandated statute, about how much of it that counties do that is exempt from the mandate. There are 7 exemptions from the mandate, and I'll just quickly read them from you. The limited effect of state mandates to provide newer activities or services on local government does not apply to any law, rule, or regulation that, 1, concerns the conduct of an election. We're pretty big into elections. 2, and I think this is where the exemption falls in on this one, required by federal law. 3, required to fund the unified judicial system. I think we put a lot of money into that one as well. 2, required to fund the welfare system. Creating, modifying, or repealing any criminal law. Reauthorizing but not expanding existing statutory authority, or specifying a minimum salary for public officials. Those are the 7 exceptions, and almost every one of them, pretty much, you combine all of them together, pretty much makes us, there's not much left. That's not what we do.
So unfunded mandates don't mean a thing to the counties.
In my opinion, no. That's actually it's immaterial, because so many of the exemptions include almost everything we do.
Yeah.
Sounds like our job description, actually. Any questions for Travis or Scott about the briefing that was presented? If not, we can talk a little bit about 5B if you'd like for a minute.
I was asked, or I became aware that you were going to have a discussion on potential staffing for the planning department. I prepared another short briefing memo on staffing needs, which I provided to you. Within that staffing memo, I indicated the number, the various ordinances and that we deal with in the county planning department. Likewise, just to give you sort of an idea of the workload and the type of work that we do, I gave you some figures on the number of applications, permits, inspections, zoning violations that we opened for the years of 2011 and 2012, which is basically the last 2 years. And then finally, I sort of did a short summary indicating that in the past 10 years, for example, we have issued permits for approximately 750 new homes, and each one of those homes, you know, with additional growth that is occurring out in the county, it requires additional services, and I think that goes without saying, and that impacts not only the county, it impacts the county highway department, the sheriff's department, all of the counties impacted because more people require more services. So I would be glad to answer any questions that you have. I just thought I'd give this to you for some general information and be here to answer any questions you might have.
We appreciate the information. Any questions for Scott at this point? Or this will probably be part of our conversation for the budget process. Other comments, questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to item 15, which is the county liaison reports. Any reports from the commission? Any new business? Any old business? If not, I would like a motion to go into exec session, and then hopefully this will only take 5 or 6 minutes.
Then we have budget.
Pardon?
Then we have budget.
Then we have a budget hearing that will begin right after that. So if you wouldn't mind, we need to have this addressed. So I'd like a motion to go into exec session for personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, questions?
I wonder if we could maybe meet in there instead of turning everything off in here.
Uh,